Hello YouTube. Amazon was given the green light by federal regulators to deploy a radar sensor that monitors people's sleeping. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, on Friday, July 9, 2021, gave Amazon Inc. the go-ahead to utilize a radar sensor technology to detect motion in 3 dimensions and enable contactless sleep tracing functionalities. The use of radar sensors in sleep tracking could improve awareness and management of sleep hygiene, which in turn could produce significant health benefits for many Americans. Amazon wrote in a June 22 filing seeking approval to market the radar device. The description of the new tech remained ambiguous, but all we know now is that the filing last month confirmed it wouldn't be a mobile device. As we wait breathlessly for the new expansion of Amazon, of course they would go after Psyche too, not just outer space. Anyway, let me tell you a very interesting and sad episode from the recent Russian history. There was a bold scientist who died under mysterious circumstances. His name was Gennady Pavlovich Krokhalyov. He discovered a way to photograph hallucinations. And according to some Russian observers, this was another piece of evidence that we are allowed to play with new gadgets, with tablets and 3D printers, and at the same time they destroy the discoveries and scientists who prove the existence of other levels of reality. Who they are, we're not going to discuss here. Let's go to this experiment. See, there was an unusual experiment that was conducted in the Ural city of Perm, and the essence of this experiment was not fully understood by all its participants at that time. It was just interesting and unusual. One by one, the objects entered the dark room. When the light was turned on, they were shown various geometric shapes on a contrasting background. They looked at them for several dozens of seconds. Then the light was turned off, and in the ensuing darkness, the experimenter asked to focus his attention, or rather the bright image that remained in front of his eyes for some time, on a dark pack from under the photo paper, which was located about 30 centimeters from the eyes. The image was projected on the package as on a screen, then slowly faded. It was only after a few years that it became clear what was really happening in the dark room. I'll get more to the experiments. But visual hallucinations are considered to be the deception of the senses, imaginary perceptions or perceptions without an object. That is, it is customary to think that a mentally ill person suffering from visual hallucinations sees something that is not in space, not in the environment. Meanwhile, back in the 19th century, researchers discovered the curious fact: visual hallucinations obey the physical laws of light refraction. For example, in 1885, scientists Binet and Ferrer noticed a doubling of hallucinatory images in space in patients with pressure on the eyes and when a prism was attached to them. And then, for the first time, a little-known Parisian artist, Pierre Boucher, encountered a strange phenomenon. Back in 1880, he worked part-time by doing new photography at that time. Early in the morning, when he woke up after another noisy party with a swollen head, he remembered with disgust his nightmares. A couple of really disgusting devils chased him all night with a pitchfork in their hands. He quickly put himself in order to work and went to the laboratory. He urgently needed to print some pictures that he had to give to his clients that day. Locked in a dark room by the light of a red lantern, he tried to remember which of the sealed plates the pictures he needed were on, but the noise in his head did not allow him to concentrate, and the images of the disgusting creatures were still very bright. Then Pierre decided to develop all the cassettes in a row. To the great horror of the photographer, in the first picture, instead of photos of clients, he saw the disgusting faces of his uninvited night guests, or the devils. Pierre showed the photos to his friends. One of them decided to conduct an experiment. He suggested that Boucher get really drunk again, after which they took pictures. The experiment was a success, and its result was a scientific article sent to the French Academy of Sciences. Of course, the article was not published, and we would never have learned about this unusual case if the materials of Boucher had not fallen into the hands of the famous French popularizer, somebody who makes ideas popular, of science, and the first collector of paranormal phenomena, Camille Flammarion. Now, Nikola Tesla also became interested in the issue of visual images. As early as 1893, he wrote the following: "It no longer seems improbable to assume that in response to an image that arises in the brain as a result of the work of thought in the retina of the eye, there is a response, excitement, where it turns into a picture." Tesla made a bold assumption that these pictures can be projected on the screen and become visible to other people. For a long time, there were disputes and polemics around this thesis in scientific circles, but for 70 years, no one has dared to conduct experiments that could confirm or refute this judgment. Later, in 1903, there was a scientist, Stering, who found the following: if the patient looked through binoculars, a vision seemed closer to her or to him, or conversely distant. It all depended on whether she put an eyepiece or a lens to her eye. Despite the fact that the described phenomena have been repeatedly recorded, no one has given them a scientific explanation. Well, in 1973, a 32-year-old psychiatrist from the city of Perm, Gennady Krokhalyov, undertook to experimentally confirm the account that had existed for more than a decade, namely, visual images arise in the brain and are transmitted to the retina of the eye, from where they are radiated into the environment or space around. With the help of a specially designed device, Krokhalyov managed to brilliantly confirm his hypothesis in practice on several hundred patients. Some reference. Gennady Krokhalyov was born on August 12, 1941, in the Perm region. In 1965, he graduated from the Perm Medical Institute. Since 1967, he worked as a psychiatrist in the Perm Regional Psychiatric Hospital No. 1. His works have received wide international recognition. Here is what he himself said about his experiments. "We hypothesized that visual hallucinations cause the reverse transmission of visual information from the center of the visual analyzer to the peripheral perceivers, with electromagnetic radiation of visualized images from the retina into environment, which makes it possible to objectively register these images by process of making pictures or photographing. Our task was to test the possibility of objective registration of visualized images in visual hallucinations using a movie camera, a photo camera, and flat negative photographic films in light-proof black packs. Since 1974, I have been able to photograph visual hallucinations in mentally ill people, mainly with alcoholic delirium. Alcoholic delirium is an alcoholic psychosis that occurs in the form of hallucinatory clouding of consciousness, with a predominance of true visual hallucinations, delusional disorders, changeable affect, accompanied by a motor excitement and the preservation of self-consciousness. Our hypothesis was confirmed experimentally. Photographing of visualized images with visual hallucinations was carried out in 203 mentally ill patients. Photographing visual hallucinations was carried out with a Lantan movie camera using a mask for scuba diving. Instead of the glass in the mask, stretch bellows from the photocore camera was installed, and the camera lens was tightly attached to the narrowed part. The mask was put on the face of a mentally ill person, and the photographing was carried out in complete darkness. By the way, in photography, a bellows is the accordion-like pleated expandable part of a camera, usually a large or medium format camera, to allow the lens to be moved with respect to the focal plane for focusing. Let's go back to the scientists. Photographing visual hallucinations was carried out at a distance of 25 to 45 centimeters from the patient's eyes. This simple technique makes it possible to photograph visual hallucinations in any department of a psychiatric hospital, since the mask reliably protects the patient's eyes from any external lighting. During the photographing or taking photos, the nurse carried out simultaneous recording of the patient's hallucinatory experiences on special cards. At the end of these experiments, control experiments were also conducted, in which medical workers and hospital employees took part as subjects. The control filming was carried out using the same films and the same masks. Each specifically filled out card has the signature of the doctor who conducted the experiment. Another method, the photographing of visual hallucinations, was carried out with flat negative photographic films, 13 by 18 centimeters, with a light sensitivity of 65, 130, 400, and 900 units, as well as infrared photographic plates, 9 by 12 centimeters. Infra 740 was the designated name for it, which were in light-proof black packs. During visual hallucinations, these photographic films in black packs were brought to the patients and kept at a distance of 20 to 35 centimeters from the eyes for 10 to 15 seconds. Patients were asked to describe what they see on that black pack. At the end of the experiment, the nurse filled out a special card where she entered the patient's hallucinatory experiences. Control experiments were conducted under the same conditions. Photographing of visual hallucinations was carried out in 78 mentally ill patients. Positive results were obtained in 40, from clear frames to weak highlights. The following photographs of visual hallucinations were obtained: familiar people at the table, a girl's face, old woman with a long nose, white light, bright image of a crescent moon, lion, fly, cat, puss in the boots, from the old fairy tale, lid, nail, giraffe, square, brother, devil, beetle, jellyfish, dot, mausoleum, airplane, brass band, monument, church, admiralty spire, vodka bottle, human face, dolphin, moon. All positive results were obtained with the following discovered regularity: the lens aperture is almost completely open. The focal length is infinity grade. Some of the photographs were shown to the recovered patients, who confirmed their hallucinations. The control frames did not have any illumination. The reference is changing the properties of photosensitive materials under the influence of light, so there were none. All all of the listed images, we managed to find just some. For example, one patient claimed that he sees the ghost of a man. Another patient was being chased by a moose. So they found those images. In January 1977, the Soviet Committee for Discoveries and Inventions accepted from Krokhalyov an application for discovery number 32-02-OT-9465, the formation of holographic images by the eye in the space of visual hallucinations. In July of the same year, the above-mentioned institution accepted the second version of the application for the opening of number 32-02-9363, the formation of visual hallucinations by the brain in space, or I would say in environment. After some time, the author received a brief answer: your application cannot be accepted for consideration due to the lack of convincing evidence of the reliability of the position you claim. The attitude to this innovator, to this scientist, in the USSR turned out to be the same as in the very sad past in my country when it came to cybernetics, when this became an forbidden science generated by bourgeois ideology. And because of that, USSR was held behind because cybernetics were outlawed by Stalin. This is why this invention did not become a registered domestic discovery. By the year of 1990, Gennady Pavlovich had 33 publications on his research in different countries of the world, including USSR, Japan, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and the United States, and more. About 80 articles were published about his works, and 6 documentaries were made. How did the famous experiments of Gennady Krokhalyov take place? Again, an ordinary hospital room. The patient has nightmares or hallucinations. His incoherent cries make it possible to guess what is happening at this time in his inflamed brain. Here, a moose is rapidly approaching him. The horror of approaching death is replaced by a new, even more terrible vision. During all this, the doctor puts a camera to the patient's eyes and takes several shots. After developing the film, the doctor sees a clear silhouette of a running elk moose on half of the frames and a snake on the rest of the frames, with the smallest detail clearly in motion. The patient who felt better after a while confirms the correspondence of the developed photographs with the experienced nightmare. From 1974 to 1996, Krokhalyov conducted filming of visual hallucinations in many patients suffering from various mental disorders. In the experiments, a mask for swimming under the water, scuba diving mask, was used in order to form a complete darkness between the camera lens and the patient's eyes. The scientists managed to take pictures of visual hallucinations in 117 patients. The coincidences were simply amazing. The photos taken showed in great detail what the patients were muttering incoherently at the time during the photographing. Again, fish, moose, cat, man, devil, and many other sometimes striking images. Gennady Krokhalyov was able to prove that visual images of invisible ghosts that arise in the inflamed human brain are transmitted to the eyes, from where they are radiated into the surrounding space. The psychiatrist suggested that all painful phenomena are interrupted if the patient is in a shielded room, and when he leaves it, they are revived. Krokhalyov was sure that visual hallucinations in patients suffering from mental disorders have an external origin. The so-called screening effect proved the existence of an invisible astral world with negative energy affecting the patient in an appropriate manner. Eyewitnesses of the experiments proved that they personally observed people's faces, images of objects, animals, and even a whole brass band on the pictures obtained with the help of a really primitive camera and a mask for scuba diving. Skeptics, on the other hand, saw in the blurred pictures the illumination of the film and then the traces of dirt in the developer process. The researcher publicly insisted on the reality of the process of reverse transmission of visual information from retina to the surrounding space. In principle, this hypothesis was easily perceived. If information goes from the retina to the brain, forming the picture of the world that we observe, why not there be a feedback, the reverse process? Vitaly Pravdivtsev, Russian journalist, author of numerous documentaries about paranormal phenomena, told the following. In the spring of 1991, Krokhalyov received a call from Moscow and was asked to send all the materials on that photographing visual hallucinations process that he collected for 17 years, from 1974 to 1991. The researcher was assured that only in this case the laboratory would be allocated several million rubles, the laboratory that he had. As expected, no one in Perm saw any money or the materials that were sent to Moscow. It was gone. Okay? Krokhalyov developed quite a vigorous activity. He wrote books, gave interviews. He was going to apply for a new discovery, which according to him was supposed to bring him the Nobel Prize. But we will never know what kind of discovery it was. Okay, so his documents are gone. He also has another discovery. He talks about Nobel Prize. We don't have any supporting information. In April of 1998, Gennady Pavlovich Krokhalyov unexpectedly for everyone committed suicide. As for the circumstances of his death, we can refer to the words of the Perm ufologist Nikolai Subbotin. I have known Nick since mid-1990s. We exchange information, and in the early 2000s, I participated in his forum for the exchange of information between Russian ufologists. There were quite a few of us present at that time. He subsequently wrote, this is what he wrote about Krokhalyov. An unexpected, terrible event happened. Gennady Pavlovich committed suicide in April 1998. It was a shock and a surprise for everyone. He was at the peak of his creative activity. Just a week before this tragic event, he brought his new 6th book signed. He was cheerful when he met with Nick. We have been trying for a long time to find traces of the archives of Gennady Pavlovich Krokhalyov, meaning Nick and his colleagues, but to no avail. The archives disappeared after his death. Was it accidental? Many of Krokhalyov's friends believe that it was not. The family of the scientist still does not give up trying to investigate his death. Krokhalyov's brother spoke to him on the phone just 2 hours before his death. Gennady was cheerful and full of energy, shared plans for further research. And the daughter of the deceased claims that the time of the death, which was recorded by the father for something, I guess, in the note, was not recorded by his hand. It is interesting that the researcher himself announced the imminent award of the Nobel Prize to him back in 1996 in an interview with the correspondent of the Perm Zvezda newspaper, Sergei Zhuravlev. He was asked the following, Zhuravlev, in February of 2020. Sergei Fyodorovich, you were the last one who interviewed Krokhalyov. Where and how did your meeting take place? That year I returned to Zvezda newspaper after a long sojourn or business trip to Вечерняя Perm newspaper, the editor-in-chief of which I had been for more than 10 years. The topics of science remain close to me, and the message about the All-Russian Forum of ufologists being organized in our city attracted attention. Among famous personalities such as the famous pilot Marina Popovich, I met Gennady Krokhalyov in the hall of the House of Culture of the Society for the Blind. He hadn't seemed friendly before, but this time he looked especially tense. Krokhalyov sparingly acquainted him with the latest results. I conducted 286 experiments. In 116 cases, I received images on photographic film. All 116 patients confirmed that they really dreamed about something like this. So, I'll step back. 116. Other places stated 117. So we'll go what Krokhalyov said. It was noticeable, however, that this topic and the results of filming did not occupy the main place in the life of Gennady Pavlovich. By the time of our meeting, 10 years had passed since the State Committee of the USSR Council of Ministers for Inventions and Discoveries rejected his application for the discoveries. The formation of holographic images by the eye in the space of visual hallucinations, and the formation of visual hallucinations by the brain in the space of visual hallucinations, and the lack of registration of these patents led to the loss of priority, which could not but upset the author. In his last publication, Gennady Pavlovich wrote, I am reporting the following data. In 1977, Zdenek Radan, president of the International Association for the Psychiatrists, published in Japan my sensational article, Photographing Visual Hallucinations, material of the Third International Congress on Psychiatrics, 1977, Volume 2, pages 487-497, Tokyo, in Russian. And my research in Japan was classified. Well, here's what some scientists in Russia wrote about his discoveries. Valery Trofimov, Russian psychotherapist. Doctor of Physical and Mathematical Sciences, Herzenstein, Research Institute of Optical and Physical Measurements, believes that the results of the described experiments of psychiatrists do not contradict the laws of physics at all. He fully admits that the sensitive cells of the retina of the eye, rods and cones, have the property of reversibility. It is possible that they work like semiconductor photodiodes, which can not only perceive light, but also become its emitters, LEDs, if a current is passed through them. In other words, the receptors of the retina of the eye can be both receivers and generators of some kind of radiation. Doctor of Biological Sciences, Professor Simakov, agrees with this account. It is not visible light that comes from the eyes, but most likely electromagnetic waves with a frequency of vibrations that is not accessible to our eye. It can be assumed that something like an X-ray biological laser appears in the complexly arranged rods of the retina, acting in a very short flashes. The role of the crystal in this case can be performed by the outer segment of the wand. My research has shown that if a laser beam is inserted into the junction of the lens fibers, the so-called seam, then it moves further along the fiber as along a light guide. Perhaps this is the way information is transmitted from the retina to the surrounding space. The eye works as a biological laser, as a magic lantern, capable of writing thoughts on the screen. Valentin Psalomshikov, who was candidate of physical mathematical sciences, a well-known Russian researcher of paranormal phenomena, I quote him often in my videos, said the following. In 1973, Gennady Krokhalyov put forward the hypothesis that when visual hallucinations is the reverse transfer of visual information from the center of the visual analyzer, located in the brain, to the periphery with simultaneous electromagnetic radiation, from the retina to the visual space, hallucinatory images in the form of holographic images that can be objectively recorded by photography. Krokhalyov suggests that voices and visual hallucinations in mentally ill people have an exogenous, this is external origin. In any case, according to him, all painful phenomena stop if the patient stays in a shielded room with the absence of radio waves, various radiations, and magnetic fields. And when they leave, they resume, all this painful phenomena resumes. Gennady Pavlovich believes that the screening effect proves the existence of an invisible, subtle astral world with negative energy, which affects the patient accordingly. Well, Krokhalyov refers to the data of other experimenters who confirmed the reproducibility and effectiveness of the technique. Thus, the dispute about the physical nature of the images obtained remains to be conducted not by psychiatrists but by physicists. Well, from my point of view, he continued, the very fact of the image appearing can confirm the hypothesis of the materiality of thought, which is perhaps even more important for the formation of a new philosophical paradigm in science than the particular question of the mechanisms of the resulting effect. Again, from the point of view of Psalomshikov, the very fact of the image appearing can confirm the hypothesis of the materiality of thought, which is perhaps even more important for the formation of a new philosophical paradigm in science than the particular question of the mechanisms of the resulting effect. Do we know more about the reason that the Russian scientist took his own life? No. Is there any connection of his research to Amazon sensors? I do not know enough. I want to tell you, you can find my other video about Russian scientists in the beginning of 19th century who were assassinated, basically, who had ideas that Tesla, I guess, developed at the same time with them. That's another case. I also have a number of videos about the Soviet Psi research. It's in Russian. It's very interesting, and different countries have different developments, and I always use open sources. But the study of human brain and psyche will continue. I wanted to introduce you to the ideas of an unusual Russian scientist, and stay tuned to the new attempts to study human psyche, and it's done by powers that are basically sometimes outside of our controls too. I don't know who regulates them. Maybe you know better than I do. Anyway, if you can support my research, please do so. The description is in the links is in the description to this video. I really appreciate your support. If you can also tell others about my channel and subscribe, I appreciate it. Thank you.